Oh my God.
Massacre in Orlando.
This was an act of terror and an act of hate.
A gunman opens fire in a gay nightclub.
There's blood splattering. I didn't know if it was mine or somebody else's.
And carries out the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is.
The gunman killed in a hail of police gunfire after pledging allegiance to ISIS.
The individual has been identified as Omar Mir Sadiq Martin.
Now we know he'd been on the FBI's radar at least twice before.
When are we going to wake up and realize that we need to address the gun violence?
From the Bay Area across the country, tonight, America stands with Orlando. And I'm Juliette Goodrich, live in Orlando, Florida. It is about 24 hours later after that deadly mass shooting. I'm about a block away from that nightclub, and it is now blocked off here. We can't go any further. And tonight we've learned 50 victims in all of this, 53 injured, many of them critically injured in the hospital tonight. And we're learning more about the shooter who was killed by police gunfire. He is 29-year-old Omar Mateen, an American citizen. We're getting more information on him and also the victims of this shooting massacre. Family members of the victims cried and held each other after finding out about their loved ones. They had gathered at an Orlando hotel waiting for news. For many, the news was devastating. Police say Omar Mateen took an AR-15 assault rifle into Pulse nightclub in Orlando and opened fire around 2 in the morning. The club closes at 2:30.
He was just basically just swiping around. No specific purpose, like just kind of just shooting anybody and anything.
Among the victims, 34-year-old Edward Sotomayor Jr., 23-year-old Stanley Almodovar, and 22-year-old Luis S. Vielma. Mateen called 911 to pledge his allegiance to ISIS and took several people hostage in a bathroom. 3 hours later, a SWAT team went in. Mateen was killed, one officer injured. His Kevlar helmet is credited for saving his life. Jose Ortiz just visited friends in the hospital.
I've been in the hospital. My friends are okay. They're okay right now, but they're all shot in there. Yeah.
So they made it out okay? Did they tell you what happened?
Yeah, they see this guy with a gun shooting everybody from a dark corner.
Ortiz was supposed to go with his friends to the nightclub last night, but for some reason didn't.
One of them is critical condition, and the other one is fine, but he got 4 shots in the body, so yeah.
And are you out here? Do you have some friends that might be inside tonight?
Yes. It's like 3 friends inside there, dead, so.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's not okay. But
yeah.
Mateen was a security guard. Born in New York, his family later moved to Florida and attended this Islamic center. But his ex-wife said he was short-tempered and abusive.
He was mentally unstable and mentally ill. That's the only explanation that I could give.
For much of the day, friends and family searched hospitals for people who were in the club. But many, like Ortiz, know their loved ones aren't coming back. And tonight we're seeing some of the chilling text messages from the patrons inside that nightclub. In particular, one party patron had sent a text message to his mother, and the following reads, "Mommy, I love you. He's coming. I'm gonna die." And inside the club, cell phones could be heard ringing in the pockets of the victims who didn't make it out as family and friends frantically tried to reach them. And as you might imagine, tonight, cities across the country are paying their respects and mourning the loss of the victims and what happened here in Orlando, and especially thousands of miles away from me is my colleague Joe Vasquez in San Francisco, where they are paying special tribute. Joe.
Juliette, San Francisco City Hall lit up in the rainbow colors tonight. A large crowd marched here from the Castro, where they held an emotional ceremony.
We need to hold on to
No more weeping over me.
Thousands gathered at Harvey Milk Plaza, the center of San Francisco's LGBT community.
We're here today to recommit ourselves to the fight, to honor the survivors, to send good energy to the family and the friends who have been left behind.
They're here to mourn the events in Orlando and to express their shock that it could even happen.
We must love each other and protect each other.
The crowd was peaceful, but also anxious and even angry at times. Mayor Ed Lee had to speak through a chorus of boos.
We're here in unity so we can stop this violence. And we want to make sure that San Francisco leads the way.
Many came just to be close to their community, to try to understand how they're still targets after all they've been through.
I definitely thought that like this kind of violence was somewhat in our past, and this was definitely a wake-up call telling us that it's not, and that there's still a lot of fight ahead of us. And I'm just glad to see that we have like a huge number of people who are here willing to like fight for that.
There were a lot of tears tonight, and Juliette, a lot of resolve, as a lot of people here said that they are determined to make sure that something like this just doesn't happen again.
All right, Joe Vasquez live in San Francisco, and back to you here in Orlando, Florida. The scene is locked down. We can't go past this area. We're about a block away from the nightclub. There's coroner's vans lined up as there are still bodies inside, many of them still unidentified. And a footnote, the hospital happens to be just a block and a half away from here. It is one of the leading trauma centers in the area. Surgeons and nurses working overtime to help those that are critically injured, many of them still not identified. And coming up later in the newscast, I'll have more on what the Orlando residents are doing to help out. They showed up in thousands of numbers today, lined up in 90-degree weather to give blood. Quite remarkable, because tonight, blood is desperately needed. Back to you.
All right, Juliette Goodrich live in Orlando tonight for us. Thank you.